Hey, do you have a minute? Let's talk about the climate. Welcome to Klima Minute, where we give you beat-by-beat updates of what's up and what's happening here in the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Glasgow, Scotland. My name is Val Vestil, and I'm your host. Apart from governments, civil society organizations, and non-government organizations, there are a lot of media here at COP26. We have media men from CNN, from BBC, and locally, Philstar, Rappler, and ABS-CBN. All the media are gathered here to cover COP26, so you know how big of an event COP26 is. The reason why AYEJ is represented here at COP26 is because we believe in the power of media and storytelling to push forward the climate action agenda. Here at Klima Minute, we will speak with media personnel who are here at Glasgow, Scotland to cover COP26. Let's get to know them more and see why it's important for media to cover a grand and global event such as COP26. Let's go. Over 3,000 journalists are accredited and present here in Glasgow covering COP26 from international TV stations, radio stations, national broadsheets, and even local community papers. Needless to say, it is the biggest story that should be covered today. Gea Cabico from Philstar.com and Pia Renada from Rappler are two of only 3 Filipino journalists here providing media coverage of the negotiations.
So I am here at COP as an environmental journalist and climate journalist to cover this high-stakes climate summit, because whatever happens here is going to affect not only those from the global north, but especially those in the global south, like countries in the Philippines that are most vulnerable to climate impacts.
Negotiations are important to every single person on this planet because the negotiations deal with things like money to protect communities who might be suffering from typhoons, droughts, food security issues, water issues, which are all related to climate change, to global warming. So people have to know what's going on because they need to know who are the leaders who are accountable for decisions that could affect whether they live or die in the next typhoon, or whether their children will have enough water or will live in a planet that's livable. So these decisions affect everyone on a daily basis. So I think that it's important for media to explain what's going on in as clear as terms as possible, despite all the jargon that we know climate change negotiations are infamous for.
With so many things happening around COP26, what kind of stories do journalists need to cover apart from the negotiations? According to Covering Climate Now, a global news collaboration to boost climate coverage in the media, best journalism should aim to humanize and localize issues being discussed at COP26 using human-centered stories that illuminate the social forces at play. Now this reporter Alejandro Alba agrees with this, telling Klima Minute of the need for more coverage on indigenous people's struggles.
It's important to cover, obviously, what governments, all the pledges, all the commitments coming out, like that's important because we need to hold them accountable. But there's also so many representatives from indigenous communities that are here, voicing their concerns, telling their stories. They have their own demands. I think that's kind of the stories that we should kind of highlight, amplify these voices.
I feel like in COP, the better stories will come out after COP, beyond COP, because you'll have the right stories on how these outcomes will actually affect people's daily lives. Because so this event that is so far away, how is it going to affect the farmers, the fishers, the indigenous peoples in the Philippines? So those are the best stories, I think, that will come out of COP.
Climate change is scary. A recent study by the Harvard Humanitarian Initiative supports this and found that there's a high level of concern among Filipinos on the impact of climate change on their lives. One factor may be because of the way the media covers climate change from a doom and gloom lens, meaning it's a hopeless case of things getting worse and worse.
Yeah, I agree that climate journalism is more on the doom and gloom aspect, and because of that, people tend to get desensitized. they feel like, oh, the world is going to crash anyway, so whatever. So there's that thinking. But you cannot report about climate change without talking about the facts that the catastrophic impacts are actually happening right now. But also, as journalists, we should also pursue stories on how communities are actually adapting.
Negative storytelling, what you get is that you get a short-lived panic state and people get used to the risk, and somehow your brain becomes immune to the whole information. But the thing with positive messaging is that it creates an excitement, it creates looking forward to, and that's the kind of excitement and energy we want to create when we're talking about our planet. Thing is, we focus so much on the problems that we forgot to talk about the solution, and we make the solution seem like this out of the world, unreachable, unattainable concept, but it's actually easily doable if we actually take action.
I agree that a lot of the more famous headlines are negative, or not even negative, but parang depressing stories. But the truth of the matter is, it's because things are really quite stark. And so it's important to also communicate how much is at stake. And that's why nagkaka-headlines na ganon. But on the flip side, I do agree that there needs to be more solution-based stories that are coming out. There has to be a balance, but also understand that the gloom and doom is there to prove a point, to say that this is exactly why we need to move now, so that we won't have these headlines anymore.
For aspiring environmental storytellers and climate advocates, our reporters and journalists say that there are many ways to tell the stories that matter.
My advice to the youth is, don't really discourage yourself of what's not possible. Just try to go out there, see, look, because if you're a podcaster, for example, use your voice to talk about climate and bring positive energy. If you're a dancer, use your dance to convey a positive message. But there's always something you can do.
Pay attention to the people around you, to the land around you, the people that are sharing their experiences. Listen to them, and then go from there. I feel like it's better to start locally and then expand, as opposed to just like see what's happening over there and then try to like just find the right person and tokenize them for that story.
In the next few days, we will get to know more about what's happening at the negotiating table, and we will be talking to other NGO observers and climate activists who are present here at COP26. See you in the next episode of Klima Minute.